now. All right, so just to recap, again, this is our annual virtual Black and Global session. We just did introductions of myself as Education Abroad Coordinator. Ahaji is here, a Senior Director of Education Abroad, and I have Joshua and Jasmine here as well as two study abroad alumni, currently Drexel students. And so now we're going to start with the actual presentation. So let me share my screen. Hopefully this works. This PowerPoint can be weird sometimes. It is in fact being weird. Hold on. Let me see here. Okay. Can everybody see this? Yes. Okay, cool. All right. So again, welcome to the formal Black and Global presentation. I know some of you see yourselves up here, so thank you so much for sending those photos. It may be sad to kind of get rid of the older ones, but they're, a couple years back. So shout out to those alumni who have held it down with those photos for the last couple of years. Just to do a quick recap, some are here today. We have Joshua over here in Tanzania. Jasmine, was this in Hong Kong or Spain?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, lovely. We have Julia here, who was also in Tanzania with this cute little turtle. I love this picture. My friend Sinai, who couldn't join us today, but he also did his, I think, a 6-month long abroad in Hong Kong. Myself and my friend in Puerto Rico, and our little group here in Ecuador in the corner, and many more pictures that we have in the file. So always love those. All right, so also just want to give a quick shout out again to Ahaji for founding Black and Global along with Sharday Johnson. You may or may not know her. She's currently Executive Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging, also works in Center for Black Culture. So if you visit that office, you'll probably see her there. So shout out to both of you guys for keeping this mission alive and allowing me to take on some parts of this project as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So again, the mission of Black and Global is to encourage global engagement among Black dragons in their undergrad, graduate, and professional careers. This can range from actually studying abroad or going abroad perhaps for co-op research opportunities, but there's also a lot of ways to globally engage here locally on campus and in the Philadelphia area if you so choose. So we'll get into that a bit later. But through community, mentorship, and leading by example through our Black Study Abroad alumni, some of which again are here today, our aim is to provide Black dragons with resources to navigate barriers to going abroad in hopes of expanding your networks, your cultural competency, and most importantly, your world view. Hopefully I got that right, Ahaji, do you agree? Okay, cool. All right, so the number one regret of college graduates is not going abroad. If you can think of 10 people in your mind right now that you know have graduated, whether recently or some time ago, and if you were to line them all up and ask them, probably at least 8 or 9 of them would say that they regret not going abroad if they hadn't at that point. So definitely a very common motif. A lot of people I speak to personally who are Drexel faculty or other people I meet in other walks of life definitely agree with that sentiment. So there are many people who wish if they could do it all again and squeeze in a study abroad opportunity, they absolutely would. So some important strengths that you can take away from globally engaging again, whether going abroad or engaging in other ways, is a global perspective on your major, which I think is really important. Of course, a lot of our Drexel professors are very well-rounded. They've traveled themselves or maybe have done their schooling abroad or in other places of the country before settling down at Drexel. But ultimately, you are still in classes with people who are local. You're learning from people who are based in the Philadelphia area. And so when you go abroad, you're able to kind of uplift that content and learn it from other people, sometimes different work cultures, academic cultures, things like that. It can maybe also influence if you want to continue schooling, if you want to stay in the Philadelphia area, or maybe you decide, oh, I actually do want to go abroad for graduate school in London or something like that, or I do want to work abroad. So it's always good for that as well. In general, just new ways of thinking and living, cultural sensitivity and appreciation, and of course, competency, like I mentioned. Enhanced communication and interpersonal skills, whether that be through learning another language, which I have further down this slide, or just in general, getting better at figuring out how to communicate your ideas to people that aren't from the same background as you. So it doesn't have to be as literal as 2 different languages, but sometimes just communication styles, cultural differences, and things like that. Independence, resourcefulness, absolutely. When you go abroad, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You don't have your immediate resources next to you or your everyday routine. So that really pushes you outside the box in that way. And if you're taking up a language at Drexel or even just kind of casually learning one, maybe not through courses, but on your own, and foreign language acquisition is important to you, spending time abroad is a surefire way to get some advancement in your language skills. And of course, standing out in co-op interviews during your undergrad and then job interviews as you get closer to your graduation time or post-grad. All right, so we're going to address some study abroad myths here. Myth number one is that studying abroad is only for students in certain majors. This is definitely not true. Of course, myself as a global studies major, and maybe, for Westfall students, for some of us, it's built into our curriculum, but just because it's more accessible, for certain majors doesn't mean it's impossible for anyone who doesn't follow under that umbrella. Maybe just more communication that needs to happen between you and your advisors, perhaps planning out a little bit more. But Joshua mentioned he's an architecture major. A lot of architecture majors think that going abroad is not possible. It is. You just have to find programs that are accessible to all majors, aren't very specific to architecture. Maybe it's just a short-term program instead of committing for a whole full term abroad, but it's definitely possible. And computer science, Jasmine, and LeBeau, engineering, all of that, bio, a lot of majors who think or have been told that they can't do it. We have students from all of those backgrounds that have managed to. So let us know if you have that concern. But moving on to myth number two, that studying abroad will inevitably put you behind schedule and make you graduate late. This is something that we don't see in the office personally, so maybe there are some stories being told that we're not aware of. I do know of rare occasions where students are willing to, add on another term or willing to graduate late because they're very passionate about studying abroad. But in terms of how we do things, you will never be blindsided by that type of scenario. There's a lot of planning, very extensive planning that goes into how your courses will apply when you go abroad to when you come back, a lot of collaboration between your academic advisors and our advisors in the office. And if there's any risk of you graduating late, you will know way before you actually get out there and you're taking those courses, and you can reroute if need be. But again, we have a lot of steps to make sure that does not happen. Myth number three is that you need to know a foreign language. We do have select programs that require a higher language proficiency, but we have just as many, if not most, that require no language at all, or maybe just one-on-one level at most. And more times than not, you can usually take that course while waiting for your time to go abroad if you haven't taken it already. Maybe you've tested into it from high school and you don't need to take the course. Either way, you'll have many, many choices if you don't have, 300 level of whatever language it is that you're taking up yet. We have other options for you. Myth number four is that studying abroad costs too much and is unaffordable. Of course, there are some programs that are costlier than others, but we do have aid in our office. We have a lot of resources that we put on our website for external aid that you can get. And between, saving, co-op, getting your cost of attendance adjusted, all things I will get into in a separate slide later. But we do try to provide as much assistance as we can to bring down the cost. And there's other things you can do on your own time as well. Am I lagging? Okay, cool. I'm lagging on my end, but if you guys can see me, that's good. And a fifth unspoken myth that I put kind of last minute that occurred to me is that going abroad is too risky / dangerous and I'm better off where I am now, which you don't hear just from Drexel students, but honestly, a lot of people in the Philadelphia area who may look like ourselves, I hear the sentiment a lot of, something can happen to me anywhere, but I would rather kind of deal with the devil that I know versus going to a whole different location. Maybe I don't speak the language, I don't have as much familiarity, and I'm too nervous on how I would kind of handle the situation if I find myself in one. So of course we will address that. And I'm sure, there are thoughts from everybody here on this panel that may want to speak towards that. But what I can say is most of our Black Dragon alumni who go abroad and come back say that if a situation occurred, you have the tools to deal with it. And it's usually never as extreme as you may have in your head without experiencing it first. So that is that. Let's see if I can move forward here. All right. So these are all of the countries that we currently have programs in. I believe all of these are still good. And we also have some dual city programs. So if you want to try to knock out 2 cities in one term, we have some programs where you can do Dublin and London, Florence and London, Paris, London, Madrid, London, all of that good stuff. So if you want to cover more ground, also a program I think is really cool between Dublin and Amman, Jordan, which you may not typically think of 2 things that will go together, but it works. So if you happen to want to go to Europe, but you're interested in Arabic as well, I think that's a very cool niche program that hopefully we can get some more students in. And I also want to shout out some new partner additions. If it didn't skip the slide. Oh, okay, okay, wait a minute. I'm clicking too much. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, this is being annoying. One second. Let's go back. Okay, new additions. So we have some new partners that we just launched and we're very, very excited about. We now have programs in the Caribbean and in South Africa. So we have a partnership with the University of West Indies and some of their campuses between Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, and Antigua, and then a partnership with CIEE for a winter in Cape Town. So I will take a pause, Ahaji, if you want to say any words about this, since this is your baby, basically.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about these. So both of these are very exciting new programs. This is our very first study abroad partnership in the Caribbean and in South Africa. We do have other study abroad programs in Africa, one being in Senegal, as well as Northern Africa and Egypt. However, the Caribbean, not only is this our first exchange program in the Caribbean, it's our first exchange program with a predominantly Black institution. And so what this means for us in terms of representation is really huge. I mean, the Caribbean is amazing for many reasons, one being the diversity. And so there's a very wide spectrum of backgrounds represented in the Caribbean. And this agreement actually allows us to send students to 4 different countries. So you can choose from Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, or Antigua. And these are universities that offer a really wide breadth of disciplines, from engineering to business, humanities, hard sciences, information technology. I mean, they're very comprehensive universities. And the University of the West Indies is the premier university in the Caribbean. So not only will we be sending Drexel students to UWI, we will also be receiving UWI students who are coming to Drexel for exchange. So it's really exciting, and we're accepting applications now for fall 24. And we're also excited about Cape Town because South Africa has been a location on our radar for a long time. And so this is our first program that's taught in English in Sub-Saharan Africa. Senegal is still available, but you do have to have upper level French for that program. So this program is going to be more accessible for students if you're not studying French. And it also fits really neatly within our winter quarter schedule, which is a huge plus. So I'll stop there, and any questions we can cover at the end.
Yes, and Ahaji is the advisor for these programs. So if you decide to apply, that's who you will be speaking with. So good to get familiar with her face and name now. Of course, we're very excited about this in the office as well, and have already been getting some interest. So that's really, really great. So shout out to that. Super strong start to 2024. And I'm happy that I just happened to join the team when all these cool things are happening. I think that's good timing on my part. So moving on. So those were full terms mostly that we just talked about. So now getting into our intensive courses abroad, or ICAs, as you may hear, these are our more short-term programs. The program that Josh was mentioning, Tanzania, is an ICA. We have a lot. The picture that I had in the beginning of us in Ecuador, that's an ICA. And so these are experiential exploration of specific topics. They can range from 1 to 4 credits and usually about 7 to 14 days. I would say majority of them are like 7 to 10 day range. We have a couple that go for 2 weeks, but not majority. And they are typically scheduled in the breaks in between terms. So fall break, winter break, spring, and summer. And so these are great if you have a major or perhaps a plan of study where it's difficult to commit an entire term away from Drexel. Maybe the classes you have to take are too specific, especially if it's the certain year that you want to go. Or maybe you just, for personal reasons, you're not ready to, be in another country for 3 months or more. These are great to just kind of squeeze in between terms. They typically don't conflict very much with Drexel's schedule, maybe by a day or two, or sometimes, you have to travel during finals week and you just communicate that with your professors. But these are great ways to go abroad once or multiple times, ideally, without having to take too much away from your typical Drexel schedule. I myself did 2 ICAs, technically 3, not really. I know a student that did upwards of 5, I think. And Joshua, you said earlier that that was your first ICA, so I'm going to assume that you want to do more. I hope that you do. So I would say on average, a lot of our ICA participants do at least 2. You know, it's very easy to do more than 1, whereas a full term, you know, usually you do 1, maybe 2 if it allows. So if you want to see a wide range of countries, it's great for that. I also love ICAs because you're not responsible for building out your itinerary. You know, the faculty is responsible for that. So they are led by Drexel professors or faculty. They're handling the accommodations, they're handling the plan, what you're gonna eat. So all you have to do is show up with your passport and just be great and be ready to have fun. So if you love to travel, but you get overwhelmed by the planning process or the budgeting, all of that, I think ICAs are very convenient for that. And just a small shout out, we have our fall break in Tanzania, again, culture and community development, which is due May 1st. So let me actually pause from this real quick and head to our friend Canva because PowerPoint was being anti-Canva earlier, but I have a little graphic here to show. Okay, so this is a group picture that I love that Ahaji sent to me of you guys at the waterfall. I just love the vibe of this. I think it like really, you know, gets the picture together. But if we continue, this is just a little bit more information on the course. And Ahaji, maybe if you could drop the program brochure in the chat if people want to really read through the whole thing. But this is just something small that I grabbed from the brochure that, coupled with community-centered learning in Tanzania, this co-curricular course introduces students to the complexities of development and volunteerism, ranges from large institutions and NGOs or non-government organizations to small grassroots organizations. And if you are to participate, you guys will explore how development efforts can further marginalize the very communities they intend to serve. You'll examine the value of community-driven approaches that recognize culture and history as a model for local and global sustainable development. So as all ICAs, this is open to all majors, but of course, if you have an interest in the humanities, community development, environmental studies, environmental science, language, I don't know, political science, maybe. Like there's a lot of ways that this could apply to either your major, minor, concentration, whatever it may be. This is sophomore and up and graduate. So if you happen to be a freshman, well, if you're a freshman right now, you would be a sophomore by the time this program runs, right? So if you're in here right now, basically you're good to go if you want to apply. Again, this is due by May 1st, so you have plenty of time. And this is basically your study abroad 101. So once we finish here today, you have that requirement knocked off. You can go ahead and meet with Ahaji and go from there. So I'm gonna get the program brochure is in the chat, so you can explore that if you'd like. Let me get out of here.
Next, Hada, if I may, just a quick other piece of important information about the Tanzania ICA, which I co-lead. Oh, the link isn't working. Okay, I will figure that out. I don't know why. So there's another aspect of this ICA that is unique. We have substantial funding for this program, which I know Hada is going to get into financial aid and financial resources, but I wanted to make a special call out about that program in particular, because this program offers substantive funding towards the program fee, and we also have a flight scholarship. This program was intended and designed to center the experiences of students of color. It's open to all students and also completely centers the experience of students of color, and we are focused on communities of color. So both times, both in Ecuador and Tanzania, when this course itself has run, we had all BIPOC students participate, which really adds another dimension to the experience, which I won't steal from Josh's thunder on that one since he was there. But we have specific grant funding dedicated for this program to make it accessible to students who may not otherwise be able to participate. All are welcome to apply, but if you are interested, I encourage you to reach out, but please spread the word to your friends as well, because the level of funding we have for this program is quite unique compared to scholarships that we offer across all of our programming. And I will stop there.
Absolutely. And let me also say, sometimes when I speak to people about study abroad, I've heard some things like, oh, well, I can go to this place at any point, so I'm not really in a rush to do it right now. I can get to that post-grad. If it was me, of all the places that we have programs in, you know, I would say I was really keen on going to Latin America a lot in my time because it's a lot easier to get there. You know, the flights usually aren't crazy. The commute isn't, super long. When you're trying to make a journey to the continent of Africa, that can be a lot to do on your own, with planning your own itinerary, the commute, the dedication to it. And so if you can have a cohort of people that are there with you, a faculty that has all those relationships and is going to kind of guide you through the experience, is planning your itinerary so you're not worried about that, planning where you're eating, where you're staying, you're with the groups, you don't have to worry about that. You're flying with people as well. And like you said, there's the flight scholarship and extensive funding. So if it was me, I mean, if I could go back and be born 2 years later, so I could be an undergrad right now, I would do it. It sounds like a perfect opportunity, our program in Senegal as well. And I feel like there are a good amount of partners that we have that you could reasonably go to at any point. I think this is a very special program that I would do, at Drexel during my time. If you kind of are, in between programs and you're trying to prioritize, I definitely want to put that out there. And I know that, again, the first core had an amazing time. Again, Josh, I will give you time to talk about that as well. But I love seeing the pictures. It seemed like, memories definitely were made and you guys are still close to this day. So lasting impacts as well in that regard. Okay, so moving on to just some slightly more logistical things. So we were just talking about ICAs, just to kind of shift gears back to full-term programs for a second. We get this question a lot on, if I go abroad for a full term, what does my financial aid look like? And so if you're doing a Drexel sponsored program, as in you're going abroad through our office, you met with an advisor, you apply to a program through our application portal, and it's exchange or freestanding through our office, that means it's Drexel sponsored. Therefore, you're going to still be paying regular Drexel tuition. So if you happen to go to a school that's more expensive, that's not going to impact you. Unfortunately, if the school is cheaper, you don't save money, but that's okay. And you keep your financial aid. So if you're getting, Pell Grants, scholarships, any type of federal aid, whatever the case is, your package is going to look the same. Just in terms of how money gets distributed, sometimes there can be differences, but we can get into that once you actually apply and are meeting with us. And then just, of course, on-site costs may vary by program and location. So cost of living in Europe is different than it is in Latin America, for example, or if you go to the Caribbean. So those are things that you can keep in mind. We do have resources on our website on, estimated costs of living breakdowns on, the different countries that we send students to. We'll update those soon. And again, I mentioned this later, but you can also get your cost of attendance adjusted, I believe, if you go to Drexel Central early enough. Not something you want to do last minute, but an option that you could explore. And I recommend taking your trip to Drexel Central before you go abroad anyway, just to make sure you have your eggs in one basket or your ducks in a row. But getting into aid. So the Office of Global Engagement awards thousands of dollars in scholarships every year, and we offer them each term. Most people who open an application for our program also apply for our scholarships as well. So very common that we see in our office. And we have some that are internal in our office, and then we have some that are external. So in terms of in our office, we have the Dragons Abroad scholarships. They can range from 500 to 1,500. Sometimes you can receive multiple at once or maybe just one at a time, depends on the situation and how many people applied at the same time as you. But we have the Diversity Dragons Abroad Scholarship, which can apply to anybody. This can be about the diversity that you're going to bring to your program, whether it's cohorted or exchange. And so it can be about the diversity that you would bring based on your racial ethnic background, but it could also be the state that you come from. If you're not local to Philadelphia, if you are, that could also apply. If you are representing a major that doesn't go abroad that often, that's a way that you could bring diversity to your cohort, or your minor, whatever it is. So there's a lot of ways that this could apply. Financial need is more based on, your financial aid package. You do get an opportunity to explain your situation in the application. And the only way that you would be eligible for financial need is if you've displayed that you can go abroad on one of our programs previously without it. So if we can go on the portal and see, oh, this person already went on the ICA and they didn't receive the scholarship, that means they can do it. We're going to prioritize other students that have never gone abroad through us, and display that same need. But you can still apply. You're not going to be shut down out of the portal. So by any means. And I believe also if you're on, full ride or an extensive scholarship like Liberty Scholars, Athletic, if you're getting most of your Drexel cost handled, we're going to prioritize other people, but you're still welcome to put a word out. And majority of these just have a project component. So maybe we'll ask you to keep a blog for us. Like Jasmine mentioned earlier, we do have student bloggers that keep track of their experience while they're abroad. Great resource for students who are interested to kind of get a more detailed look into their time abroad. Maybe we have you send us pictures of your time abroad or another project component that you may create yourself. So you can have some creativity with that as well. We also have global classrooms here at Drexel. You may or may not have taken one already or heard of them. Global classrooms are essentially, regular Drexel classes that you would take here on campus, but they have a global component into it. So say if you're taking a language course, I know our Spanish professor sometimes will Zoom in students from a classroom abroad. So I believe like Celeste collaborates with a school in Chile. And so the Chilean students are trying to learn English, you're learning Spanish, you guys collaborate. It can look like that. Sometimes it may have a globally oriented like community engagement opportunity built into the course. Can look a lot of different ways. So we also have a list on our website of global classrooms that we're aware of, but you can always check the term master schedule if you're curious if any new ones have been added. And the Global Engagement Scholars Program, which you do not have to have gone abroad to apply for. I will get into this later if anyone has questions about it. I won't get too into it right now. But you are eligible for fee waivers if you're involved in either of these. So if you've taken a global classroom or if you're enrolled in Global Engagement Scholars, you're eligible to have your fee waived. And if you've done a global classroom, you're already immediately eligible to apply for Global Engagement Scholars. We have scholarships that are specific to universities. So McNeil, for example, is specific to our partner in Scotland. You can get up to $25,000 for that. The Marilyn D. Rose or MDR scholarship is specific to LeBeau students, I believe, who are interested in Trinity College of Dublin, global engagement funding. And we have the Lindy Center Anti-Racism Grant, which I wanted to shout out because that is on the Tanzania brochure. If you haven't been to the Lindy Center yet, fantastic people, great team. And I believe the anti-racism grant is more centered around a project component that you would create on further supporting community organizations in West Philadelphia. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to them or us. But I would say there's also a lot of grants and additional aid specific to departments. So for example, I have in other scholarships, CNHP, they offer study abroad scholarship. I know Global Studies does. I believe Westfall. So a lot of times there's extra money out there and you just don't know until you ask. So if you have some connections in your department, put a word out to your professors, put a word out to your advisors. They may know of some additional aid for you as well. So it never hurts to ask. And if they don't have anything at that time, they may remember you and down the road, let you know if an opportunity arises. We have the Gilman, which you may have heard of, Freeman Asia, lots of extensive funding. And again, we do have a list of scholarships on our website that are external. So if you want to go through that, you can apply to as many scholarships as you want to. We cannot tell you to have a limit. Just depends on deadlines and if it'll align with the program that you're interested in. Also, if you've heard of undergraduate research enrichment programs, or UREP, they have aid as well, and they have opportunities for fellowships, for research abroad, sending students to conferences. Really amazing department. They also work and provide assistance for those who are interested in Fulbright, which I'll mention later. But great department to get in touch with if you're interested in just engaging globally and other broad opportunities outside of just studying abroad. And Steinbright, also you can go abroad for co-op, and I believe they have some aid in there as well. So you may think that there's no way to get additional aid, but I promise you, you can. You just have to ask the right people at the right times. And again, adjusting your cost of attendance is an option. So I won't get too into this, but I want to mention it. The Dornsife Global Development Scholars, or DGDS, this is for the public health school, but you do not have to be a public health major to participate. If you're interested, again, I would reach out to, I don't know if there's like a lead for this program now, or if they've changed at all, but if you are in the public health space, or maybe that's in your concentration, or if you're just interested in anything in these programs, you can reach out. Typically, these programs take place in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. So I know they have a program in the summer for Ghana, Senegal, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda. Some of these may have changed since, but you can reach out and see about that if you're interested. All right, so some other international opportunities. Again, we're talking about globally engaging in general. Again, you can do international co-op through Steinbright. You can do service learning through Student Life. Again, the international research through UREP, which is something that I personally did in my senior year. So when I said I technically did 3 ICAs, 2 were through study abroad. The third was a research funded opportunity to return to Puerto Rico. And I did a research project about environmental racism in Loíza, which is the African descendant capital, basically, of the archipelago of Puerto Rico. So that was very interesting to me, and I wanted to do that. And I just really want to put that message forward that there's a lot of overlap between these different facets on how to get abroad at Drexel. And so if you pursue something through study abroad and realize that it's not really going to work for your schedule, you have other options as well on how to get abroad. So don't end the conversation there. Don't get discouraged. You can come back to us and we can give you some other options. Your advisors may know some opportunities. So there's a lot going on here at Drexel that people don't know about. And we already talked about this, so I'll skip this slide for now. So next steps, hopefully after all this great information, you're interested in going abroad. And so you can review our programs at drexel.edu/global. It used to be /study abroad. If you type that in, it'll still redirect you. So either way, you'll get to the website. You can click request on a program that you're interested in and complete a pre-advising form. And you can schedule an appointment with an Ed Abroad advisor by emailing us at studyabroad@drexel.edu. I'll drop that in the chat quickly, although most of you probably already have that. I'll put that here. So you can just send an email that you were here today. And once you've looked through some programs, it helps if you know at least one, maybe one or two that you're interested in. So we know which advisors to match you with because we divide us by region. But if you're really not sure where to start, we can still work with you. So just let us know where you're at. I would also say meeting with your academic advisor is a good place to start because they may know, looking at your plan of study, the best term for you to go abroad, or they may have some extra information that you're not aware of yet in terms of planning it out. And then that typically helps us help you more by the time you come to us. Gonna kind of start sipping through here. It's 3:45. Okay. So again, you can contact us through our email. We also have our Instagram, Drexel Study Abroad, where I believe I have a highlight of a takeover. One of our students did in Tanzania. We have students doing takeovers all the time. I believe my takeover is still up there. So if you're curious about what a day in the life looks like in a program you're interested in, that's a great way to get a visual on it. And again, our blogs as well, which I can drop in the chat. But I'll stop sharing now. And we got about 15 minutes here. So want to be considerate of people's time. Again, I am here past 4. I don't mind. But in terms, hi, Tagita. I just saw you. I didn't see you join in because I was sharing my screen. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Okay, we have another Tanzania participant here. Amazing. But yeah, so it's good that you guys are here now. So I will open it up if you guys just want to give, a sentence or two about your experience, how it perhaps, change your trajectory of returning to Drexel. So we can take about 5 minutes for that between Josh, Takita, and Jasmine, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions. So Takita, I'll have you go first since you joined a little
Okay.
bit, and then we'll go back around.
So answering like my spiel on Tanzania, right?
Well, first you can introduce yourself. Who are you? What's
Okay.
your major? What year are you? And then talk about briefly how was Tanzania? How did it impact you? Would
Okay.
you recommend it? Hopefully you would.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tagita. I'm a sophomore global studies major with a business concentration and French minor. And I knew I was going to Tanzania before Ahaji even knew me, because I remember I participated in Thrive prior to my freshman year, and I found out they were going to Ecuador, and it sounded like a really cool opportunity. And I was like, whatever it is next year, the one thing I know I'm doing is going. And so I think, yeah, so I ended up going, so that came true. But I really thought it was an enriching experience because one, like I have West African roots, my family's from Senegal, and so I've always wanted to visit the motherland. And when I just saw this as an opportunity, I was like, what other way to do it than to use this? And I also really care about community development, and just what the world is like outside of the United States. And so I feel like this class definitely did that, and it was definitely useful and an experience I would carry with me for the rest of my days. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And then Josh, I'll just have you go next because you're next on my screen. And then Jasmine, I'll have you go after.
Yeah, so my experience in Tanzania, I think one of the most key things I found enriching and meaningful was, as you were saying, like getting out of your comfort zone, being out of your own bubble. And before I even went to Tanzania, like I was in my own bubble. I was in my own world, and I was unaware of other people and like their interactions and like just their identity. I kind of was just in my own like silo here. And so when I went to Tanzania, it was such a eye-opening experience in terms of how people expressed their identity, how prideful people were to be part of Tanzania, the way that they just carry themselves so um I think with so much confidence and so much conviction, and they have such a presence that I didn't experience before. And I also experienced something that I didn't know I would experience is the fact of being satisfied with what I have, being humble, and not feeling the feeling of like want, of wanting more. I think, at least for me, like before I came on the trip, I always thought I didn't have a lot. Um, Compared to like other people, I was like, I need more, I need this, and I need that. And so when I went there, the people that I experienced on my time there, they were always so grateful and just satisfied with what they had. And stuff that we think is minuscule is something that they think is meaningful. And so just seeing that distinction was pretty like powerful. And so I guess like eliminating that like feeling of want was important to recognize, and to also recognize that we're beyond grateful um to be here in America and to have the privileges and opportunities that we have here. Um and so yeah, it just put it more into context for me. So yeah.
Okay, I can go next. So before I went abroad, I thought I was already pretty well versed in traveling or like understanding people's culture because I'm not even from the US, so I'm Nigerian. And so I here as an international student. So I was like, oh, how different could it be? And then I went abroad. I did two study abroads, one in Hong Kong and one in Spain. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I always thought about how different I was going to be from everyone else. So going abroad, it really made me understand that, first of all, people don't sometimes will not have the issues. Sometimes some things are just in your head. You think that people have these like preconceived notions of you, but they just see you as like another human being. That's one thing that I had to understand, that not everybody has like the worst intentions right off the bat. They actually want to get to know you, irrespective of like what media portrays or something like that. And then another one was like being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're not always going to have a very cushy environment. You're not always, because sometimes I'd go out, and in both countries, English is not the main language. In Hong Kong, they speak Cantonese. In Spain, they speak Spanish and Catalan. So like everywhere they had another language. So sometimes I'd go out, and that day I just was not like encountering people who were maybe willing to speak English. And I can't hold anybody at any fault because I am in their country. I have to like honor or respect them. But being comfortable with the fact that not everything is going to go my way, and I just have to like sometimes take it and like work with what I have, that really resonated with me. So like when I did come back, I was able to appreciate even smaller things, like, oh, just the fact that I have this already established community here that like already knows me, and I don't have to go through the process of like re-socializing, trying to meet new people. Like we don't think about the community we have here already as like having friends and family now. And then you go to another country and you're on your own. You need to like make friends, speak to people for the first time. It's a process. So like just appreciating like small things like that, or the big things even, like, so yeah, it was very interesting.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for sharing. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'll open the floor up now for questions. If you guys have questions about anything logistical or experience here from our students. You can either unmute or put it in the chat if you're unable to unmute at the time. And yeah. Chat in case anything comes through there. Yes, Kayla.
Okay, hi, thank you for this meeting. I was wondering about the Caribbean abroads. Do you guys know if those are like considered ICAs?
How do you want to answer?
Sure. So the University of the West Indies, that's an exchange program, not an ICA. So that means that you would be going there for a term, taking a full course load. So you would be selecting from, whatever, what's your major?
Oh, I'm culinary arts.
Oh, okay. So I haven't looked to see if they have culinary arts, but even if they don't, there are other courses in addition to culinary, your major, that you have to take for your degree requirements. So you would be there like a full-time student, taking a full course load, having classes with local students, local faculty, living the local life, socially, academically, personally, and having a full immersion experience.
Okay, and when you say full term, you mean like a full year or like a quarter?
One term.
So
Yes. So right now we're accepting applications for fall 24. So that means you would be there for the fall 24 term.
Okay, and regarding the financial coverage, oh, the unique financial coverage you guys were talking about, is that for all ICAs?
Which part? All of the different types of scholarships that Hada covered, or the funding that I was specifically talking
The
about?
funding that you were specifically talking about.
Right. No, that's what I was saying. That's specific to Tanzania. That
Oh,
program
okay,
is
okay.
unique in terms of having that type of funding. That is specifically for the Tanzania program.
but I do believe like the anti-racism grant I think can apply to whichever. Yeah, so that's just up to you and the Lindy Center. It just happened I found it in the Tanzania brochure. I don't know if we put it in any of the other brochures. But you don't have to be doing the Tanzania program to apply for that. You know, it just happens to be a partnership that was pretty direct. But you are more than welcome to apply for that, just as a, project component when you return. And I forget which campus it was, but I would definitely encourage you to look through like each campus, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Antigua, because I was looking at one the other day and I saw something about food. I did, unless I totally made it up, but I would definitely look through all of them, because you may be able to get some culinary stuff out the way. And if not, like Ahaji said, between your minor concentration, electives, all of those good things. So that's stuff that you'll plan out with your academic advisor on how are things going to apply based on, your degree works. Nothing should be a fall through course, so everything should allocate somewhere, and everything's going to go towards the overall credits that you need to graduate. But yeah, definitely look through those. Kind of boil it down again, maybe meet with your academic advisor. And if you find one that you think really fits, we'll meet with Ahaji at that point. You guys can start moving forward with the application. Yeah.
And actually, that said, we do have a trailblazing grant, which is not just for the UWI. We have quite a number of programs. These generally tend to be programs where they're new, so we haven't sent a student there, or maybe they're new-ish and we've only sent one or so students there. And that's an automatic grant that you receive of $350 if you're accepted into the program. So like I said, we have a list of trailblazing locations. But all of our new programs, and when I say programs, I mean term-long programs, automatically qualify for the Trailblazing grant. So for the UWI, any student who's accepted will automatically receive the $350 grant. And you could also apply for our other scholarships, but that's a more, traditional application process, which is the ones that Hada mentioned, financial need, and then our diversity scholarships. So we offer those for ICAs and term-long programs, and that you have to apply. There aren't too many programs where you're going to get automatic funding aside from Trailblazing grants and the Tanzania program, the Tanzania ICA.
Absolutely. But yeah, you do not have to keep this all in your head by any means. Whenever you sit down with the academic advisor, you'll go through all of this again. And if you would like after this session, if you send a follow-up email and you want some of this in writing, just let me know. I can easily put a little list together, a recap of what we talked about. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, so how does the application process actually work?
So between ICAs and full term, it's a little bit different. So ICAs are a bit easier to explain. I'll start with that. You don't have to meet with a advisor from our office to open an application for ICA. You can open those on your own. And you would have to meet with the faculty that leads that program. So if it just so happens to be Tanzania, you would meet with a Haji. But say, you want to go to London in the spring to learn about, the history of the Beatles in Liverpool. You're welcome. You would have to meet with the professor that leads that program, do an interview. It's not usually as strict of like a co-op interview and you're really answering questions. It's more so just kind of a feeler of, are you a good fit for the program? Does this work, for your academic track, all of those good things. There's usually an essay component, maybe just one, maybe two. Typically, you have to ask for recommendation letters. And I would say those are the most involved things for ISA applications. The rest are just, supplemental questions, signing off that you read certain documents and you understand them. So those are very easy to get done. If you're applying for a full-term program, ideally you go to a study abroad 101 first, or, an information session like this to kind of go through the basics of studying abroad. Then you follow up with us once you have a program in mind. We'll have you sit down with a study abroad advisor based on the region you're interested in. So they'll kind of walk you through that application, what's going to be required of you, making sure you understand, the timeline and all of that good stuff. And once you say, okay, I'm really interested and I want to apply, they'll open it for you. At that point, you can access your portal. And if you'd like, they can take you through each step. Some students are able to just figure it out on their own. Some really like to be walked through it so they understand everything they have to do. That's totally fine. And ideally, you have enough time to where you're not, rushing to try to do it in one day. So let's say if you're trying to apply for fall, that's due March 1st. It's February 9th right now. So if you were to meet with an advisor next week, you'd have a solid 2.5 weeks to get that done. Again, it's standard to give people at least 2 weeks to write a recommendation letter. So that's what you want to knock out early. The rest you can do on your own time. So if you work well under pressure and you're like, I'm just going to do this the night before, totally, up to you. If you want to get it done early because you're like, okay, this is due the week before finals or something, like, let me not put myself in that situation. You can kind of figure out how you want to do it on your time at that point. There's usually, like an academic planning form that you do with your academic advisor. So again, you'll be walked through all of that. But that's basically just to kind of make a rough draft of what courses you would be taking in the scenario that you go on this program, but you're not married to it. You can change it later. If it changes once you're physically abroad, that's fine too. Yeah. So I would say the essays and the recommendation letters are probably like the most involved thing. Everything else is easy to knock out in like an hour. So.
Yeah, and if you're interested in applying for UWI or any program for fall of 24, I would say email me as soon as possible and we can schedule an appointment specifically for UWI. But if you are still exploring, then of course, take your time to do that. But I would say for UWI, if you already know, it sounds like that's a good interest of yours. I would say email me your availability. We can meet next week to talk about applying for, if you're interested in applying for fall 24. We should get that ball moving pretty soon.
Okay, thank you so much. That answered all my questions. I hope you all have a good day. Thank you for everyone else who's shared their experience as well.
Of course, thank you for coming. I dropped Haji's email in the chat if you want to copy that for yourself later, so you can reach out to her with UWI. Thank you for coming. Thank you, all of you guys, for joining me on this Friday afternoon. I know there's a lot else that you could be doing right now, so thanks for sitting in with me. And yeah, so I'll be posting this recording. Feel free to circulate it to your peers if you knew they wanted to be here today, but they couldn't make it. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the office soon. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Great. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Hada, for organizing this.
Of course. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.